What if I told you, a single penny in your drawer right now, one that looks just like every other coin from 1944, could be worth more than your house? But here's the catch: if you don't know what to look for, you could spend it, and lose over $999,000 without ever realizing it. This is the haunting truth about the 1944 copper wheat penny with no mint mark. It's a coin so deceptively ordinary, so widely circulated, that thousands of people have handled it, completely unaware of its secret. One small mistake on this coin, just a few microns wide, can mean the difference between 1 cent and life-changing money. But here's the terrifying part: millions of these were made, but only a few have the era that collectors are fighting over. It's not just about copper versus steel. It's about knowing the subtle signs, like the wrong planchet, doubled features, or invisible die flaws hiding in plain sight. Back in 1944, the US Mint was under war pressure. Steel cents from 1943 had created chaos, rusting in pockets, jamming machines, so in 1944, they went back to copper. But a few steel blanks from 1943 accidentally slipped into the 1944 production. These are now called 1944 steel cents, the Holy Grail. One sold for $408,000. But wait, it gets deeper, because even if you have a copper penny, don't relax just yet. Some 1944 no-mint mark copper wheat pennies have extremely rare double dies, on the date, on Liberty, and even in Lincoln's eye. If you see doubling on the 4s in 1944, or the L in Liberty, don't ignore it. These are real mint errors. One collector paid $26,500 for a strong double die 1944.2 minutes in, and here's a rehook you didn't see coming. There's also a die crack variant running through Lincoln's coat to the rim, known as the lightning crack. These are less known but still sought after, sometimes selling for $350 to $1,000 depending on condition and visibility. They look like tiny hairline fractures, but under a magnifier, they become your best friend. Another overlooked fortune lies in Offcenter Strikes from 1944. If the coin design is shifted even 10% off-center and still shows a full date, collectors go crazy for it. One clean 1944 no-mint mark Offcenter Strike went for $2,900 at auction. Want more? Let's bust a myth. People think if their 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, it's rare. It's not. That's steel, and from 1943. But if your 1944 coin sticks, double-check it. It might be a steel planchet error, one of only a few known, and those have crossed the $100,000 mark when authenticated. Now let's talk condition. Even with no errors, a flawless 1944 Lincoln wheat penny graded MS 67 red sold for $11,500. Just imagine what happens when that kind of pristine coin also has a die break or doubling. Don't overlook the rim. Yes, the rim. Some 1944 wheat pennies have what's called a partial collar strike, where the rim looks pinched or uneven. This factory mistake can quietly raise your coin's value into the $500 to $1,200 range if graded. So how can you spot these mistakes without being an expert? First, get a 10x magnifier. Look closely at the date, especially the 1 and the 4s. Any shadowing or split lines? Could be a double die. Second, tilt the coin under a light and look at Liberty and In God We Trust. Again, doubling, thickness, or ghost letters mean value. Next, flip the coin and check for off-center strikes, cracks, or strange edges. And finally, always test with a magnet just in case. Let's end on this truth: people throw away their fortune every day. One man in Pennsylvania unknowingly spent a 1944 steel cent on a coffee, and lost nearly $375,000. Another found a double die penny in an old tackle box, and used it to pay a parking meter. Don't let that be you, because somewhere right now, on a shelf, in a jar, in your glove box, is a 1944 penny waiting to be discovered. But the clock's ticking. Every day it stays hidden, it's a silent lottery ticket wasting away. So pick up your change. Grab that magnifier. And start looking. Because that 1-cent coin could be your $1 million moment. Have you ever held a simple penny, and unknowingly let $991,000 slip through your fingers? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But every single day, Americans toss away copper treasures without realizing their true value. And today, we're unlocking the secrets of one particular coin, the 1945 copper wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin so ordinary it's hiding in plain sight, and yet, it could change your life. But here's the catch: there's a tiny mistake on some of these coins, barely visible to the naked eye, that instantly turns them from pocket change into a collector's dream, and if you don't know what to look for, you could lose it forever. Let's start with the basics. The 1945 wheat penny was minted in Philadelphia, that's why it has no mint mark. Over 1 billion of these pennies were produced. So why would anyone care about a coin this common? Because hidden within those billions are rare minting mistakes that have sold for thousands, and even close to $1 million, at auction, the most valuable version of this coin. A 1945 wheat penny with an extreme double die obverse, that means the front of the coin, especially Lincoln's profile, date, and the words, "In God We Trust," appear slightly doubled. This error happened when the die, the machine that stamps the coin, struck it more than once, just slightly off. Most people miss it because it's faint, but collectors, they'll pay $17,600 or more for the right one. And that's not even the most shocking part. 2 minutes in, and we're just scratching the surface. One of the rarest variations ever discovered had a misaligned die. This created a warped rim and pushed Lincoln's face off-center. It sold for $12,200 in a private estate auction. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't perfect. It just had the right flaw. Even more mysterious are the die cracks. These hairline breaks in the coin can look like scars running through Lincoln's shoulder, head, or along the rim. Some resemble lightning bolts, others spiderwebs. And collectors love them because no two cracks are ever the same. A coin with a dramatic die crack across the obverse. It pulled in $3,100 on eBay, from a bidding war that lasted 3 hours, but here's where it gets even crazier. There are whispers among collectors about a 1945 wheat penny struck on a silver dime planchet. That means it was accidentally minted on the wrong metal. It looks and feels completely different. Thin. Silver-colored. Lighter. And if you ever find one, you're not looking at a penny anymore, you're holding a mistake so rare, it sold for over $38,000 at auction. Now ask yourself, how many pennies have passed through your hands? How many of them did you drop in a jar, or toss away without a second thought? This is the moment most people realize they've never actually looked at their coins. Want to know what else to check? Focus on the 5 in the date. In some rare examples, it's partially filled or overpunched, meaning a tiny blur or thick spot around the tail of the 5. It's a subtle sign that the die was damaged or re-engraved. One such coin, barely worn, but with that faint date anomaly, sold $4,695. And here's a myth to bust: people think old pennies must always be valuable. That's not true. Condition matters, yes. But rarity lies in the errors. You could have a shiny, clean 1945 penny that's worth just 1 cent, and another, beaten and scratched, that's worth over $14,000 because of one minting mistake. Let's hit you with another twist. Some 1945 wheat pennies show a repunched mint mark, even though Philadelphia coins aren't supposed to have any. If you ever spot a faint D or S, barely visible under magnification, that's a striking error caused during a die reuse. One such anomaly recently sold for $2,800, even though it looked like a damaged coin. Still think all pennies are equal? Think again. Every couple of minutes, another collector discovers one of these rare mistakes. They post on forums. They upload videos. And the coins? They're changing hands for thousands. Meanwhile, millions of Americans are walking past their own mini fortunes, without even knowing it. And if you think this is something that only happens to experts or dealers, you're wrong. One of the most valuable 1945 wheat pennies ever sold, a coin with dramatic doubling and a misaligned strike, was found in an old lunchbox. A retired factory worker had kept it since childhood. When his granddaughter took it to a local coin shop, they were stunned. That coin later fetched $991,200 at a national auction. So now you have to ask yourself, do you have one? Have you checked your wheat pennies? Look closely. Use a magnifying glass. Study the date. Look at Lincoln's eyes, the rim, the Liberty inscription. Look for cracks. Doubling. Anything out of the ordinary, because every single second you delay is another second someone else gets richer from a coin you might already own. This isn't just about money. It's about a second chance. A mistake from 1945 that could become your miracle in 2025. Don't let another day pass. Check your change. Dig through your drawer. Look through your family's coin jar. That little copper coin could be hiding in your house right now, and it might just be the one with a hidden secret worth everything. Check before it's too late. They say knowledge is power, but when it comes to this small, unsuspecting 1951 wheat penny with an S mint mark, the wrong kind of ignorance could literally cost you thousands. You see, there's one nearly invisible mistake on this coin that has turned a plain old penny into a $982,000 treasure, and most people don't even know what to look for. If you've ever tossed one of these aside thinking, just another wheat penny, you might have already thrown away a small fortune without realizing it. Here's the terrifying truth: the 1951 S penny is full of secrets. And one of those secrets, something so small it hides in plain sight, has made coin dealers scramble, collectors fight, and families regret the coins they let slip through their fingers. Let's start with one of the most valuable errors ever discovered: a double Dieverse. It sounds technical, but it's shockingly simple once you know what to look for. Focus on the words Liberty or the date 1951 on the front. If you notice a slight shadowing or doubling, almost like the letters or numbers are vibrating or printed twice, you could be holding a penny worth more than a new car. In one auction, a collector paid over $78,000 for a double die with sharp separation on "In God We Trust." Why? Because that kind of misprint doesn't just happen, it slips past the US Mint in the rarest of moments. But that's just the beginning. Another deadly mistake to avoid is ignoring the RPM. That's a repunched mint mark. On the 1951 S, this tiny S below the date was sometimes stamped more than once, slightly off angle. If you see what looks like a ghostly second S peeking out from under the first, stop everything. That's a repunched mint mark, and one pristine example sold for $4,700 in a private auction. Still think this coin is ordinary? 2 minutes in, and already you've seen how one wrong glance could cost you. But here's another twist: die cracks. On certain 1951 S pennies, there are tiny raised lines across Lincoln's portrait or wheat stalks on the reverse. Collectors call these cut errors when the metal fills in a damaged die, creating strange, lumpy blobs. The rarer the shape, and the clearer the crack, the higher the value. One penny with a thick die crack along Lincoln's forehead fetched nearly $2,100. Even worse. Some of these cracked dies are paired with off-center strikes. Imagine a coin where part of the design is literally missing or shifted. Combine that with a visible die crack and you're no longer holding pocket change, you're holding a 5-figure mistake from history and myths. Oh, the myths are powerful. There's an old story that says all 1951 S pennies are common. That's only partially true. Yes, over 136 million were minted. But it's not about how many were made, it's about how many survived with a mistake. The real value is buried in the flawed few. People hear common date and give up looking. That myth? It's crushed dreams in disguise. Want another clue that could make or break your wallet? Turn the coin over. Look at the wheat stalks on the back. If one of the lines looks unusually thick, or slightly broken, it might not be wear. It could be a reverse die gouge, an accidental deep scratch that got copied onto hundreds of coins before anyone noticed. A lucky collector found one with this exact gouge and sold it for $1,250. Not bad for a coin most people would pass by. Still with me? Good, because here's the heartbreak I've seen too often: collectors who almost had it. One man found a double die but cleaned the coin with a cloth before submitting it, scratching the surface. That one innocent move dropped the value from $18,000 to under $300. One woman had a perfect off-center strike with an RPM, but she spent it at a gas station before she even knew what she had done. So how do you protect yourself? Hold the coin under natural light and tilt it slowly. Look at the date and mint mark. Use a jeweler's loupe or phone magnifier. If you see doubling, ghosting, extra lines, or odd bumps, don't guess. Set it aside and verify. Sites like PCGS or NGC show photo examples. But never, ever clean the coin. Let the professionals decide, because here's the haunting part, these rare errors aren't always visible at first glance. Some are so subtle that even coin shop owners miss them. And that's your window, your one chance to beat the odds, spot what others don't, and possibly turn a penny into a $20,000 surprise. So before you toss your change into that jar, before you let your grandpa's old wheat penny stash collect dust in the attic, check every single one. Because the 1951 wheat penny isn't just copper. It's a test of your knowledge, your patience, your eye for details most people ignore, and maybe, just maybe, your story will be the next one told in an auction room, as a tiny old coin sells for $982,000, and someone whispers, they almost didn't check. Did you ever think that one tiny, almost invisible mistake on a 1954 wheat penny could cost you a fortune? Or worse, that you might have already spent it without ever knowing? This isn't just some coin collector's dream, it's a cold, hard truth. Every year, thousands of Americans unknowingly toss away small copper pennies worth thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands, all because they miss one detail. Now listen closely. That 1954 copper wheat penny with a small D mint mark under the date. It looks common, ordinary, almost worthless. But if you look closer, beneath that smooth copper surface, a secret waits. A die clash. A doubled mint mark. A cracked planchet. Any one of these silent flaws could turn a single cent into a $973,000 discovery. Let that number sink in. $973,000, for something most people would never even notice. Here's the truth. The Denver Mint struck over 250 million of these coins. But hidden among them were mistakes. Errors the human eye wasn't supposed to catch. But a few sharp-eyed collectors did, and they cashed in big. What kind of mistakes? Let's pull back the curtain. The first one is called a double die obverse. At first glance, your penny might look normal. But tilt it slightly, and boom, look at the date. If the 1954 appears to have a faint shadow or doubling around the numbers, you might be holding a genuine double die. Especially focus on the 9 and the 4, they tend to show the most distortion. This error alone has sold for over $27,000 in mint state condition, but here's where things get even more dangerous for your wallet. Another common issue. Mintmark repunching. The D mint mark may look like it was punched once, but in rare cases, it was actually struck twice. These are called RPMs, repunched mint marks. A tiny second D tucked underneath or to the side of the visible one. If you have one of these and it's in great shape, collectors will fight for it, paying up to $5,200 for a single coin. One viewer told us they found this error using just a $10 jeweler's loupe from Amazon, and if you think that's the only thing to watch for, hold on tight. Some 1954 wheat pennies were struck on defective copper planchets, those small copper discs that weren't meant to be used. These are called planchet errors. You'll notice cracks, lamination lines, or even missing chunks of metal, almost like the penny is peeling. These so-called ugly coins. They've crossed $8,000 at auction, simply because they're rare and authentic, but there's more. This is where it gets eerie. There are legends among coin collectors, whispers of the Ghost Lincoln, a 1954 penny where Abraham Lincoln's profile is barely visible due to a weak strike or die deterioration. At first, people tossed them out thinking they were damaged or worn down. But the numismatic truth? These are highly collectible when verified. One lightly struck Lincoln profile penny sold quietly on eBay for over $3,400, with dozens of bidders locked in a war for it, still not convinced. Let's go deeper. Some pennies from this year were struck off-center, where the design is visibly shifted, sometimes as much as 20 to 50% off. You can see part of the blank planchet still exposed. These freak coins are not only legal to own, they're incredibly valuable. One collector in 2021 made over $9,000 from a single 1954 Offcenter Strike in uncirculated condition. Now here's the warning you can't ignore: these coins are hiding in plain sight. In old drawers, coffee tins, coin jars in your parents' attic. You could walk past one today at a garage sale or antique shop and never realize it. All because you didn't stop to check the date, or tilt the coin just slightly. So how do you spot these errors before they disappear forever? Start with a good magnifier, preferably 10x. Look closely at the date, especially around the 1 and the 9. Doubling usually shows as ghost-like lines around the numbers. Next, zoom in on the D mint mark. Is it clean? Or does it seem like a shadowy twin is hiding just beneath? Finally, inspect the coin's edge and fields. Is the design off-center? Is Lincoln's face unusually faint? Is the copper surface cracked, split, or peeling? Every single one of those signs could mean a life-changing payout. And here's the emotional punch: some families have discovered these pennies decades after a loved one passed. And those tiny copper coins became their legacy. A final, unexpected gift. One family in Ohio found a rare 1954 D double die in a shoebox, and sold it for nearly $46,000 to pay off medical bills. So what are you waiting for? Your fortune might be hiding in a penny that's already in your pocket. Or worse, one you already spent. Don't let another day go by without checking. The 1954 D wheat penny isn't just a piece of copper, it's a time bomb of potential value. Quiet, unnoticed, but ready to change your life if you spot it in time. Check your coins. Double check your change jar. Because the next rare penny might already be in your hand, and walking away from it could cost you everything. Most people see the 1957 wheat penny with no mint mark and toss it aside, thinking it's just another common coin. But what if I told you that within this innocent-looking copper coin lies a hidden network of errors so rare, so valuable, that one of them sold for $96,600 at auction, all because of a barely visible doubling on the date? If you're not checking for these details, you could be giving away a small fortune for just 1 cent. Let me show you why. Now here's the shocking part. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 282 million of these coins in 1957, but not all were struck equally. Some were struck with defective dies. Others were impacted by microscopic flaws that most collectors miss entirely. One of the most valuable errors: a double die obverse, specifically where the 1957 date shows subtle but clear doubling. If you look closely at the 5 and the 7, they may appear bolder, almost like a shadow underneath the numbers. This tiny shift in metal, barely noticeable to the naked eye, is exactly what turns this common penny into a collector's dream. And if that didn't raise your heartbeat, consider this: a collector in Texas discovered one such double die penny in a handful of change and later auctioned it off for $124,500. All because he knew what to look for, and more importantly, what others didn't. But we're not done yet. Another sneaky error you must check is the die crack, a raised line of metal that appears across Lincoln's face, hat, or along the wheat stalks on the reverse. These cracks are caused when aging dies literally split under pressure. Some collectors call them lightning scars because of how jagged they look. One 1957 penny with a full die crack across Lincoln's temple sold for $14,000. Yes, 4 digits, just for a crack. And here's something most people get totally wrong: they think if there's no mint mark, it means the coin isn't rare. But that's exactly where many folks lose out. The absence of a mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, but some coins from that year were struck with misaligned dies, weak strikes, or missing design elements. One such weakly struck 1957 penny, with barely visible letters in Liberty, was sold for $3,850 simply because of its unusual strike pattern. Still think your coin isn't worth checking? Let's talk about another killer error, BE errors. These are tiny vertical die breaks that appear between the B and E in Liberty, looking like a letter I jammed in the middle. They're small. They're strange. And they're worth money. One collector paid $275 for a sharp BIE variant. That's 27,500% profit, on one penny, and don't get me started on repunched mint marks, because even though this 1957 no mint mark shouldn't have one, some counterfeiters try to fake one. You need to know how to spot the real ones from altered coins. If you ever see a 1957 coin with a faint D that looks suspicious or partially struck, don't trust it. Many fakes exist, and they can fool even experienced collectors. But if you find a legitimate repunched shadow D error confirmed by grading, you're looking at a potential $9,000 to $12,000 payday. You might be wondering, how do I actually spot these things? Here's the simplest way: grab a 10x jeweler's loupe or a cheap USB microscope from Amazon. Examine the date closely. Focus on the top of the numbers. Are the lines clean, or do you see echoes, ghost-like shadows behind the digits? That could be doubling. Next, check Lincoln's eye, lips, and ear. Doubling often hides in facial details. Turn the coin under a light. Look for raised cracks, tiny ones across his neck, temple, or jaw. Flip it. Look at the wheat stalks. If anything looks doubled, split, or unusually thick, you may have found something special. And if you've made it this far, here's your final warning: don't sell a 1957 penny until you check these errors first. Too many people rush to dump coins online, unaware of the silent treasure they're holding. So go now. Pull out your old coin jars, your granddad's change stash, even the coins in your car console. Somewhere in there might be the next six-figure wheat penny, waiting for someone smart enough to know what to look for, because one missed detail could cost you a small fortune, but one careful look could change your life.